What's up?
How you doing?
Great, my friend. How are you? How's it been for you today on this Monday? Oh, can you still hear me? Let's give a few minutes here. Let some other folks jump in. Darius,
What's going on? What's going on?
what up, my man? How are you?
I'm doing all right. We got two contracts signed today.
You
Um,
got, so two of them were yours? It doesn't even
yeah,
tell me who they are when
the
I sign up.
one was Roberto Soto. That one was mine, and then
Fire.
James Penn was also mine. I think we did that one on Friday. But yeah,
Yeah,
yep,
we got, I think, had some kind of update because we signed it again today.
yep.
Good. Love to see that. How was your weekend in Charlotte, bro?
It was good. It was good. Had a good time and some learning. You know what I'm saying? It was definitely well worth the trip. For sure, it was definitely worth it. Enjoyed myself.
Justin's a cool guy. I got to meet him
Yes, sir.
in Orlando. We've spoken a couple times. I really wanted to be able to partner with him more, but like it's like hard. We have such solid systems built out. Even what might feel shaky sometimes when things are imperfect,
Right.
in comparison to what everybody else has, it's like you send a lead to somebody else and you're like, it's so hard to ever reel back an update and like get
Right.
feedback. So like I really want to. It's just been or inefficient for us to be able to make it happen yet. But I still supposed to go down and sit down with him in Miami at some point and see if we can't find
Yeah.
a way to collaborate.
Heck yeah.
That's cool. Was there
Who
anybody
do
else
who
at that
do
event?
what'd you say?
Was there any other speakers at that event, or was it just hosted by Justin, or what?
No, it was just him. He also has another guy, Anthony Fruciano. That he's like his
Right
main
hand.
guy or whatever. But yeah, he
Yeah.
did a little talking and we made a few seller calls. But yeah, yeah.
There you go. There you go. Well, that's
Who
what.
do I need to talk to about like the because I know the one notary was signed and I also just received a message but it wasn't for my deal.
What? That's interesting.
It was something in Florida. So
Okay.
I
What
just
was
text.
it? Have the name on it?
Let me see. I'll tell you right now.
Let me look at my messages here.
Um, so no, it doesn't have a name. It just says your notary call for 7901 Fourth Street, Petersburg, Florida, has been booked. And I was working with Bain to get the other one scheduled, but that's in Texas. So maybe I'm not sure if like there was a
Sounds like an
information.
automation issue.
Okay.
So let me message in the Novations chat. So Darius said he got a text about notary for a deal that's not his.
Darius, would you mind sharing the address and I could jump in and check on that?
Yes, ma'am. The address is 7901 Fourth Street, North Suite 300, St. Petersburg, Florida, 33702.
If you want, you can also drop that in the chat if you have that.
Okay, I definitely will. I'll just, let me see. Go
I,
here.
yep, I think I know that one, and you're definitely not the
That's
lead generator on it.
yeah, that's fake steel.
Yeah, so
Yeah,
I just
exactly.
posted that in the, oh, also let me do it so I can, so everyone can see it.
Yeah, so we'll have to definitely fix
There you
that
go.
Thank you for letting us know that so that we can get that squared. Faith would like to know that that happened for sure.
for sure.
Let's see. What's up, Sherry? How are you doing? You having fun on the Docs team?
Yeah, Sherry's doing great. I'm having definitely fun on the docs team. Been working and getting things cleaned up for us so we can just focus on sending contracts and getting signatures. I'm determined, Garrett.
That's what we're looking for. That's all we're looking for is
Let's
that,
go, Sherry.
yeah, right? Sending the contracts is great, but like we got to get the
Yes.
signatures too. One of the conversations we did a meeting with some of the really a lot of the closers earlier today, and I really want that team to sharpen up some of the things that we're doing so that we can just operate in a more
Mhm.
efficient way. if we do a better job of fully explaining what we're doing to sellers, both from your level as a deal maker or the closer, wherever you're at, but like doing a more thorough job of explaining on a deeper level what it is we're doing with novation specifically.
Mhm.
It's relatively easy, or at least easier for a lot of people to explain the um, cash deal, right? And how that works. That's not too complicated. Creative, we all know that's really hard. Novations is a creative strategy. So you need to make sure that if we're going to pitch this or position this, that we really, really know how to more thoroughly explain it. Because if we do a better job of that, I believe we should have a much higher contract sent to contract signed ratio, right?
Yes.
That's the most important KPI for me is how many do we send versus how many do we sign? Maybe not the most important, but one of the most important is how many do we send versus how many we sign? Because if a closer or anybody here, right, is sending out a contract that doesn't get signed within, I know Hans said 48 hours in the chat. We're not
Yeah.
going to pull it off their desk. But what Hans meant
Mhm.
more by that in that 48-hour marker is like follow up with people from the deal maker level. If they have not responded or given any feedback in 48 hours, we need to basically threaten, tease that we're going to take it off
Yeah.
because they need to feel urgency is really, I think,
Yes.
what he was trying to get to that just didn't get fully explained in that message. So
Okay.
there's that. Yes, I want to make sure that we get more signatures on what we do sign, right? But part of that is all of you as lead generators, as you're touching these, like you should follow back up after the call, right? After the call, don't call to go through the docs again or do negotiations. Go follow up after the closer call and say, hey, I just wanted to ask you and give you another outlet if you had any other questions that maybe you thought of after you got off the call, right? Because if you do that, and you keep that line of communication open, you're pushing the likelihood of them signing way higher. And the truth is, I know for sure, as somebody who has been a closer in many different places in my life, and as somebody who leads many, many conversations, and I believe pretty confident in my ability to communicate, is that when you are good at communicating and when you do a good job of portraying information and you go through and thoroughly explain it, sometimes people will not have questions in the moment and or they might feel that they don't want to ask the question in the moment because they might think it's a dumb question or they might want to wait to ask somebody else, right? But then when the closer pulls out and the doctor leaves and the nurse comes back in, right, now you can get a different perspective from that seller again. So when the closer gets done and you got the yes, right, and everybody's like hoorah, all right, and we send the docs, okay, great, no problem, the next day you should be following up with them. Hey, just want to
Mhm.
reach back out and see if you had any other questions. I know there's a lot in that document. If there's any clarity I can add for you, let me know so that I can help or I can pull in, the closer, whoever that might be, right? So I think that the more you guys take responsibility for that communication channel, the faster you'll get those deals closed. Darius, I know you've got two of them that we got signed today. How frequently have you been communicating with those leads to get them to that point?
So actually, the Roberto Soto one, that was the one that I sent in the group earlier.
Yeah.
And actually Sherry called me on, I believe, the James Penn one yesterday, so I had to get
Yes.
that one. I had to call him back and make sure that that was actually signed. But yeah, I mean, I've been definitely trying to follow up every single day on ones that haven't signed a contract yet and such like that. But yeah, definitely try to make contact every single day. But like that last guy, Roberto, I hadn't spoken to him in like a week. And he finally signed the contract today. So
Mhm.
I definitely think the follow up is where that happened for sure.
Absolutely.
Absolutely.
I try my best when you have an open opportunity, a solid prospect, somebody that you feel can actually get there. Try to not go longer than 24 hours out making some kind of contact, even if it's just a simple text message. And like there's so many little tips to this. You can literally be sitting in your bedroom on your bed with not doing anything, but you're gonna text the seller and say something like, "Hey, I've been super slammed with other calls today with sellers. We're looking at buying a lot of products. I just want to reach out and make sure everything's still good with you. Any questions?" Right? You're making yourself appear more busy. You're giving more urgency because we're buying other properties and they got a limited time frame to do that, right? And so the more that you're following up and making contacts, the better results that you're going to get overall. And so I know a lot of people are like, oh, well, I don't want to pressure them. I don't want to be annoying, right? You can go ahead and leave that one at the door, right? You want and almost have to be just short of annoying in order to be efficiently serving these people. Because keep in mind, there's all kinds of other wholesalers that are calling and reaching out and sending contracts. And there's people that are just, several people told me recently they just pre-fill out a purchase agreement and mail it to the home to the seller. Like they're literally getting blasted with offers from all sides. So like you don't want to let it slide because what if you don't follow up with them today on a Monday, but somebody else did and they get that signature and you follow up with them on Tuesday, you only missed one day and then you lost the deal, right? And so it's incredibly valuable to stay on top of this. This is why the CRM is so important. Obviously, there is some automations built into your OS so that when things are sent, if you want to set up automations to like follow up people on your own, we can help you set up more of those as well. But there's all kinds of things there for the follow-up game specifically. One of the things that I've talked about a lot, specifically over the past month or so, we've had 3 or 4 different students that have been able to get a contract signed by sending something to the seller. Go on DoorDash, send cookies or coffee or whatever. If you had a conversation with them and they expressed that they like something, send that, right? But like just put something in their hands. Since we're virtual, we don't get the benefit of going. Remember a couple weeks ago, Daniel Aldana came on here and he talked about taking the guy the bottle of liquor, right? We don't get to do that when we're virtual. So instead, we're going to send something else to put in their hands, something sweet generally, right? Yeah, everybody likes something sweet, right? Cookies is a generally easy thing for most people to be open to. When they get a present, right? A gift, this is now something that they have received from you. And so now when the next time you talk, they're at least, if nothing else, more likely to answer the phone. And if they answer the phone again, at least you can keep pushing it forward. Doesn't mean they're going to sign every contract. There's a certain math formula to how much we spend on things like this. Those are marketing expenses versus what comes in and the timeline in which it comes in. But if you get good at it and you're following up consistently, just a little, hey, I was thinking about you today, wanted to see if you're ready to get this deal done, and you send some cookies over there, you'd be surprised how it hits. I promise. What's up, Chelsea? Oh, you got a mic? Yeah, you already got one. What's good? We just got another one signed, by the way. Michael Anthony Ryan. If that's any of y'all. Chelsea, you're unmuted, but I can't hear you if you're talking.
Right. That's because my AirPod's broken. That's why.
Of course.
Sorry about
Awesome.
that.
What's up?
So now, dude, I'm just like listening in because, and I'm just, first of all, like, that's always kind of, I feel like what separated me, you know what I mean? From like, I felt like always kind of like up my game. I always try to be so strong in my follow up. And to be honest, like this system and working with Garrett for a while has really, really done that for me because, you know, you have the ability to like set the tasks to like come right into your notifications and like alert you, you know, hey, don't forget, follow up with Betty, you know what I mean, or whatever. And like, I mean, I might not have been thinking about Betty until I got that notification, but like it always kept me on top of my shit. And that, and like, just, I feel like that's why I really, really like the part of Darren's process, right? Where he's like, you know, if the homeowner is, I guess, being combative or, you know, not following the process as swiftly as we would like, you know, he hits them with that, you know, all right, so what is it? Is it, you know, there's just a couple things typically when a homeowner doesn't want to go with, you know, this, I don't know if he says like buyer or, you know, when a homeowner doesn't want to go with me, maybe he says, you know, there's a couple of reasons it typically comes down to. It's either the price or, you know, it's the price or there's another thing. And then he's like, or it's me, you know what I mean? Like, is it me? It must just be me. You know what I mean? Because now it's like, you're putting this homeowner, I feel like, in a box. And the fact of the matter is, like, the most important things is like if you're talking to a seller that's motivated, right? Like not somebody who's not motivated, not somebody who's like could list their property on the MLS or would have been doing that or is about to list or like doesn't really have a need to sell, more of like a desire to sell, right?
Yeah.
Not that person, but you're talking to somebody who's motivated, they're not going to wait for you. You know what I mean? Like they're just not. And if they're not signing with you, it's got one reason, it's got something to do with one of those reasons. You know what I mean? Because fact of the matter is, if you don't get them to sign and then you let them go and then your follow-up game is not strong, you're going to lose them. And then when you call back in a week, they're going to be under contract with somebody else whose numbers are probably better, worse than yours. You know what I mean?
Well,
So
you know what, Chelsea? One of the things that I think makes you great at what you do on the phones and what a lot of people can learn from you is that people could know nothing about what you're trying to offer, but they will know you and they will like you and you will know them is probably even more important. Like you will have
yeah.
built a true relationship with this person, which is truly wild, the depth of relationships I've seen you build with people over the phone that you've never met in person. You probably never will, right? But you
Yeah.
all about their life story, the relationship they have with their kids and why they're making this move and all the different things. So when that person is ready to make a move, they're not like, oh, let me find the next wholesaler that calls me. They're like, oh, let me talk to Chelsea because she's
Yeah.
taking time to build that relationship. Now, one of the things that is hard for you, Chelsea, I know, and hard for many people is that is not instant gratification. We want that deal and we want it now, right?
Right.
Not that easy. Those that really win the most in any sales oriented gig are those that know how to build a pipeline of opportunities that come in even when you're not expecting it. I used to love at the gym. It would be a slow day. I'd have nothing up, and all of a sudden somebody would walk in and ask for me, right? And they're like, I didn't have an appointment on the books, nothing. I'm like, go up front, and it's somebody that I spoke to 8 months ago, but I called them every single week since then. So they come,
Oh,
they got a new year, new me. I'm ready for a gym membership. Who are they going to go see? I'm here to see Garrett.
yeah. Right.
This is the game that I played. And I realized I used to think that I was the best around. I was always number one in the rankings in the gym, at Gold's Gym at least, when I was the sales guy. And I used to think it was because like, oh, I'm a closer and like, oh yeah, I can talk anybody into anything and I can sell water to a whale, which some of those things might be true. But what the real reason why I was at number one is not because like I was running a sales process that was more polished or because I was studying sales material to be the best sales rep I could. It was simply because I made more phone calls consistently than anybody else around. I put up more dials and I was going to follow up no matter what happened. I had the guys, eventually I very quickly moved into a management position. And then all of a sudden you got the guys like, on Saturday, the boss is out of the building. I'm 22 years old. I'm the boss on Saturdays. I got guys that are working for me. They're 40 years old, right? And then they're sitting there on Saturday and they're just, clicking buttons. I look at the screen and it looks like he's made 40 calls. I know damn well I ain't heard him make a single phone call. And meanwhile, I'm like,
Right.
his name was B Cross, rest in peace. B Cross passed away a couple years ago. He's big, big dude. We were like Robin Big. He's like 6'6", big black guy. I'm not 6'6". And so like, Robin Big, they kind of joked with us, right? But like, I'm like, B, like, why are you not making calls? Oh, well, it's like I called everybody I got in my pipeline this week. And I called them, I didn't get no answer. I tested some text out, I didn't get no text. I've been texting people on my cell phone, so people from the barbershop. He's like giving me all these bullshit reasons. I'm like, B, how much money did you make this month? And it was about half, probably, honestly, probably less than half of what I was making. He's almost twice my age. And I'm like, why? Like, why, right? Because it was so hard for me, right? I'm like just young and dumb enough to just pick up the phone all day long. I'm gonna make, at the time it was $6,000 a month. I'm gonna make $6,000 a month. What? I'm picking up the phone all day long, because at 22 years old, there was nothing else I was doing that was making me that much money. Period. Like there just wasn't around, at least for me at that time. So I was willing to do the calls, and in turn, I made the most money. Right. And then I got promoted because that's what they want to turn around and teach other people to do. Right. If you take the same principles of just being dumb enough, just dumb is not the word, just being hard headed or stubborn enough to just keep picking up the phone, even when it's not easy, even when you don't want to, even when it's Saturday and you want to kick back because the boss ain't watching, you still show up and do the things anyway. That is what makes me G Money. That's what makes me who I am, is that even if it doesn't feel good, we still show up and do the damn thing. And when you have that mindset applied to follow up, you'll begin to build those kind of relationships, right? It's not always easy. I don't always want to make the calls, but I pick it up, I call, and then I get a connection, and boom, you manage to find a deal that you wouldn't have had if you don't do that. So follow up is everything. That's everything when it comes to my side of things. So love some of that. Let's see, we got some other people jumping in here too. Who we got? What's up, Cordell? How you doing, man? I ain't talked to you in a couple of weeks.
I'm good, brother. I'm good. I'm living life, man.
Yeah. How's it
Yeah,
going for you out
I
there?
got Teresa working on a deal right now
Love
that we
it.
got yesterday. Yes, sir.
Love it. Love it, dude. So what?
Package
You already
deal.
got a couple signed now, right? Or this will be the second one?
This would be the second one, yep.
There we go. Where's it at?
Let me see.
Did it come
This
from the Blitz on Saturday, or where'd it come from?
no, it was right after the Blitz. But
Nice.
where is this deal at? Oh, it's I think it's dude, I'm having such a brain fart right now. Hold on.
No worries. I'm just catching up on text over here anyway as well. We got a deal sold in Jacksonville today from the dispo side. We got who is that? I think that's Raymond that will get paid out on that deal in Jacksonville. Bain as well. Money Mike got on the dispo side. We've got some
That
of
one's
Braylon's deals getting
that
closed.
that one's mine, brother.
Oh, that was you?
Yeah,
Oh, there. What's
the
up, Jonathan?
Jacksonville. How's it going, man?
Hey, man. So that's you that's getting paid out
Yeah,
tomorrow. Today, bro.
finally.
Yeah, right. They've been dragging that shit out for a couple days
Yeah, sub two and then turn into cash, but we got it all the way to the
now.
closing table.
We got it there. People wanted us to drop it. They're like, oh, it's not a good deal. Oh, it's this or oh, it's that. I'm like, dude, what? Like, we can make this happen one way or another. We can make this deal happen, especially because the seller really needed some help.
That's
So
Yeah,
fucking amazing. Yeah. What's up?
got
yeah,
it
it was
done. Took a little
crazy.
bit longer than we wanted it to, but guys, here's a learning point. Here's a teaching point. That's why, especially now moving forward, everything needs to have a longer closing period, close of escrow, right? Because a few things. If a deal can be sold fast, it will be sold fast. Whether you put a 60-day close on it, a 90-day close on it, or a 14-day close on it. So why press ourselves with 14 days just in case something does go wrong, right? A lot of times wholesalers, and this has got a lot to do with the way that they're trained by other gurus, other teachers, people that are more the real estate guy versus me being more on the marketing side, right? They're like, just lock it up, right? Give yourself a 14-day inspection period, back out if you can't find a buyer. That's terrible advice, in my opinion. You're just going to end up frustrating the seller. You're going to end up dropping more deals than you actually get all the way across because most people don't have an expansive buyer's network. And unless you're dropping a shit ton of money on investor lift or deal speed and other stuff, you're probably not able to get nationwide buyers quite as easily. So it just dramatically limits what you can do if all you're trying to do is get an offer signed and then just back out if it doesn't work. Versus the route that we're going to take as deal makers is totally contrary to that. We are going to have a standard 90-day closing period, right? If they want to go shorter than that, then they're basically, we have to, and from the closer's perspective, more and more as we roll this out, justify to me and Garen why that is, right? And so if they need a 30-day close period, we can make that happen. Why is that, right? What is the negotiating chip that the seller is giving us in exchange for that? So if they need a 30-day closing period, okay, we're going to need a discounted rate because of our time crunch, right? Now we need a 14-day close. Well, we got to be talking about a 30% ARV kind of deal, 35, 40%, right? Where it's like no brainer. I know I can turn around and sell this for 45 or 50% overnight and not have to worry. But if it's not that steep of a discount, we're not going to give you the negotiating chip of a fast close. The problem is sometimes because the nature of what it means to be a closer and then secondarily the excitement and the energy of what's going on within the community, we just want to get the signature. So whatever the seller says, we're willing to do it. And then you get frustrated with the docs team when the docs team says, well, Garrett said we can't do that. And then well, just do it because that's what the seller needs. But one thing about making a good deal is that it's got to be a win-win for both sides. And just because you can get the seller to agree to something doesn't mean it's a good deal for us. And I think sometimes we have overlooked the fact here that it's my name on the dotted line. When we're all working together here, right? And you're using the internal team, It's DM Acquisitions that is signing that contract, and it is my name on there, right? So we need to make sure that if I'm going to take the liability for all of this, we know what we're getting into, and it has to be a more standardized process. So quite to the contrary, we are going to very, very thoroughly explain all of the things that we have to like really make sure that the seller fully understands what's going on, specifically when we're working with a novation, because there's some things that I think it has been made clear that I haven't made clear, or that we haven't made clear enough, right, in regards to novations. And so that being said, we got some folks jumping in here, and let's talk novations, right? Actually, Sherry, you said you share that too. What do you mean by that?
Oh, I share people that it's your name on the contract. So we need to always make sure, what we're doing is, of course, moral, ethical, and all of that, because you, in the end, are responsible for whatever we do. So
Right.
that's huge, and people really should think about that, even how when we're out in the public, like we honestly, Garrett, we are representing you.
Mhm. And I have kind of overlooked that a bit because like it's not real. I don't view this as a me thing as much as I view this as a we thing. So like
Sure.
it's not really been that perspective, but it's been brought to my attention by all the other people. They're like, hey, like you got to be careful, right? Like you got to be thinking about what we're
Yeah.
signing. So with that being said, we all know that Garen is the best around at novations. He's the most experienced by far. He's
Mhm.
got all of the details dialed in, like way better than I could ever ask, right? For us to be able to partner together and make this thing happen so much faster. So he's done a ton of volume. We know that what he is doing works, and the contract that we're using is derived from that. There's a few additional things that are added in, and a few tweaks based off what we're doing with the early release and a few other things. But for the most part, it is the same exact contract that he has done several hundred novations with over the past few years. So safe to say it works. He's also gone ahead for us. He's already gone and paid the lawyers and gone to court and lost some, won most of them, done all the stuff so that we know when we present the way that he has been doing currently with his team prior to this, and it works, when we do the same thing, we can count on it working. And so, excuse me. The biggest differentiator is being able to clearly and fully explain a novation. If we're going to run this process and you're going to be positioning, I don't expect you to do all the closing and negotiation necessarily, but you should at least know your product well enough to be able to explain it. Keep in mind, guys, that's what we're doing. We're selling a product, a solution, right? You should know your solution well enough that you can get them to a point of understanding. The negotiator will come in and talk numbers and go through things, but you should be able to answer questions. And part of that, I think, is going to involve me having everybody kind of study that contract a little bit more. I have to be a little bit hesitant on just sending it out to everybody. But soon enough, we will have some form of training or course designed around learning fully how to best portray innovation directly to a seller. Anybody got questions? I know there's some newer folks in the community. Some of you guys are newer than others. Anybody got questions about novations, or just says, hey, I don't know what a novation is at all, and we can break it down? Feel free to say
Hey,
that.
Garrett, I did have a question on the early release thing.
Okay.
I know you said like it usually takes a few days after the notary, what's it called? But like, how do I make sure that you guys get my bank information and such, or like, do you guys reach out to us?
Yes. Yep. Haley and everybody, and soon actually, you guys will need to. Everybody that signs up will submit their bank information. You guys will
Okay,
probably have some kind of form fill where everybody just submits whatever wire info is needed. Um,
right.
Haley will handle that. You'll get a JV agreement. Once the title report comes back and we confirm this is actually a deal that we can move forward with and safely lend on. Like one of the deals we had to cancel, it was like signed for 95,000, had like 135,000 in liens on it, and
Oh
really
wow.
deal, right? And like the seller didn't share that. And so
Right.
then we do the title report. Obviously, we can't land on this deal if we can't make this a deal. So once that title report gets back and it gets green light from Garen, then it will get passed to Nicole. She will review that, green light it basically from the funding side of it, and then it'll be wired. It should be And I know that this, keep in mind, does not apply to all the ones that have already happened because we've been trying to basically reword a lot of the documents to like make it make sense. Like nobody else is doing this. So like we have to take the EMD lending docs plus the novations agreement and the JV agreement, and we kind of just kind of blend it all together. It just got back from the lawyers today. So most of the other ones will get funded over the next couple of days. On a standard process, I'm going to say that for the sake of safety, I'm going to tell people 14 days, I think is a safe expectation. It probably happens faster than that once it's well oiled. But for the sake of you not coming back to me and say, hey, you said I was going to get it in 3 days or 5 days and not getting it, it's going to be safer if I say roughly a 2-week expectation after that passes. But that's a rough timeline. Hopefully, I'll be able to give you a more consolidated timeline once the process is smooth. But for now, I have learned my lesson on over promising.
Heck yeah. Okay.
Thank you. Thank you for that question because I know others have it as well. What's up, Chelsea? You got your hand raised? You got 2 of you in here tonight. What's up with that?
Yeah, sorry, I struggle with the mute button. But it's just funny. It like just makes me chuckle hearing these things because I actually can relate to this because like when I was going through all these different calls and talking to all these different sellers. And I remember just Garrett, like I would call you, dude, and be like, "Yeah, let me talk about this." And like, then like you'd be like, "Oh, Chell, come on, like, talk to me about the next one, like, whatever." But like, I'd be like, "No, but Garrett, like, you just don't understand. Like, I gotta make sure this is right. Like, you know what I mean? Like, I gotta make sure this is right." And like, then like we had the lady like Robin, who's like her son, it was like daughter ended up like she was like pretending to be the mom for the first like couple of weeks of the contract. We're going through title now, and like I'm finding out that this is the daughter that's lying to us. Like it's the daughter, like not even like manipulating yet, but like and maneuvering the whole, the whole process. And I'm like,
We
shit.
never even told that story, Chelsea. We got to tell that story.
Yeah, like it's crazy, man. So like I can definitely relate to that because I feel like, yeah, like I know like when I'm signing, I'm like, damn, like I want to make sure this is right. Like now I feel like I know so much better, but just like then, like yeah, I totally could relate to that. And then also like back to the 14 like day closing, like that's just insane. You know what I mean? Because like just now, thank God, like we got Haley, because it's like, dude, I remember just like trying to juggle with this lady, getting this lady through title. It's like, wow, 14-day closing, you're smoking something. It's like somebody's in the back end, like trying to push that shit. And then it's like in front of some like other deals that probably could prioritize in front of that one, So it's like, I think sometimes this is what people don't think about. I mean, it's like
You should see it as a sign, right?
crazy, dude. That's
They want to
insane.
go so fast. What are they trying to hide? If they don't want an inspection
That's
period,
what Robin
what are
was
they
doing.
trying to hide, right? If they want
Yeah.
EMD wired directly to them outside of title, why would that be? So like anytime somebody hits you with something outside of our standard process, excuse me, the question needs to be why? And they should have a really good reason. Look, I just inherited this property. I'm burning money every month on it. I've got to get rid of it. I have no sentimental value. I just want to get rid of it at 40%, whatever. They give you a stupid price. Okay, easy, easy, easy. Go flip the paper.
Well,
No
wait.
problem.
Robin, this woman, actually, remember, Garrett? She was trying to
Yes, I
speed the
remember.
shit
I took
out
a
of us.
$500 loss on
Yeah,
it. I remember.
we put the EMD down. She was trying to speed the whole process. She's calling the title, the woman in title every day. Like, I talked to Chelsea again. Chelsea said, her and Garrett are good to go. Da, 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 da. The ladies call me. I'm like, I didn't say none of that. First of all, we still gotta go through our contingency. We have a contingency period. We gotta do our inspections. We're not using her appraisal. Like, what is she talking about? And she's trying to speed through, and then come to find out, it's all because she was trying to sell us on the fact that the property was going to cash flow Airbnb. And then like at the end, she like, it was like, we were actually getting somewhere. And then at the end, you find out like, it's because the condo, whoever owns the condo, like the homeowners association, they were battling with her. Like, you can't do Airbnb out of this condominium. You know what I mean? And so if we would have, locked it up, we would have took even more of a shit ton loss. Like, because then we wouldn't have been able to cash flow. There would have been a stop to our whole process. And she's trying to give me like letters from the lawyer, like the lawyers, like pretty much like, I'm going to stand my ground on this. You can't do this to us. And I'm like, yeah, that's exactly what we want to get ourselves into. Yeah, that's perfect.
That was the very first one that we're taking swings at, by the way, guys.
Yes, dude, it was
I'm
rough.
excited.
Yeah,
Yeah,
so
the boy
it's
pays a
just
lot of
it,
money for lessons, that's for sure. We spend a lot of money on learning.
oh
But
yeah.
one of the things that I was gonna say there, and then I'm gonna let Scott talk next, but like we got to think about something I want to flip in your mind, right? Is that this in this scenario on the acquisition side of our business where we all work at, right? The seller of the house, listen, the seller, right? The seller, they're the ones that's selling something, right? So now let's think about a salesman. Let's think about when you go to a store or you go to a car dealership and a salesman comes up to you, what is he going to do? What is she going to do? They're going to fluff it up, right? They're going to give you all the best features, advantages, and benefits. They're not going to talk about most salespeople are not going to talk about the flaws. They're not going to talk about the negative reviews. They're not going to talk about all of this, and that. They're going to talk about all the shiny, nice, pretty things that they want you to see. What do we think that the seller is going to do in this scenario? They're going to do the same damn thing. They're going to blow smoke up your ass. They're going to lie about it. They're going to tell you the conditions better than it is. They're going to tell you why it's such a home run deal, and you got to get it now. You got to keep in mind what position we're playing here. We're buying this property, and we're not operating as a wholesaler, right? We're going to look at this always as a buyer. So if we're buying this property, I want to make sure this is a good deal, don't I? And so if I'm going to put, and keep in mind, it's my signature, but you guys could just as equally go sign them yourselves if you want to take the risk. Most of you probably don't want to, so that's why we do it, right? But you got to keep in mind that they're trying their best to make this product of theirs look juicy and appealing so that you buy it. Because that's the same thing we got to do when we go sell it to an end buyer or an investor or whoever that is. We got to go sell the property, create the story, give the vision, right? So you should have a very discerning perspective. Your goal should be to discern what's the truth here and what's the fluff, what's the icing that they're putting on it for me so that I want to take a bite. Think about that when you're talking to sellers, and I bet you don't put yourself or us in precarious situations anymore, trying to take a bite of something that sounds super juicy, but it's just been painted that way. And when you get in there, it's rotten in the middle. Like we don't want that, right?
You got it, Garrett. That was my point.
I know it. I know it. Let's see. Or Scott, you had your hand raised next.
Yeah, sorry about that. I hope it's not too off topic, but what exactly is a novation?
Not off topic at all. So an ovation is an agreement between us and the seller to partner together to sell their property, right? So instead of where with a cash deal, we might close on it twice. And on our side now, and I'm kind of hesitant on some of my word choice here because all of our agreements moving forward will be locked up on the standard novation agreement that we have with the option to sell at a cash price, right? And so we are intentionally locking everything up that way, right? But in a standard scenario, if you're out there on your own, right, you might go lock a property up at a discounted rate, and then you're going to go sell it to a fix and flipper, or maybe you're the fix and flipper, right? And you're going to go get the hard money. You're going to get a DSCR. You're going to get a private money gap loan for the cost of the rehab. You're going to close. So you got the initial closing, the closing costs. Then you got the carrying cost of the capital, which my man Eric will tell you, it ain't cheap, right? So you're gonna have to pay the cost of the capital to get the deal done, right? And so we got to get a very steep discount in order to get that done, right? So we're gonna often take a property as is, and we're gonna fully renovate it to get it to a higher level ARV. With innovation, we're gonna focus on not an ARV, but we're gonna focus on the as is value. We're going to instead of closing twice and like going through the whole closing process, paying all of those fees, and then carrying the cost to do rehab or whatever that might be. Instead, we're going to partner with the seller, right? So in the novation agreement, and then they sign the POA, we take total control over the property. We're going to do all of the process that it takes to sell, including working with a real estate agent who doesn't represent the seller, they represent us because we have control over the property after they sign the POA. So we're then going to find, in the way that you qualify innovations, we're going to find what's the closest comparable as is that's sold recently and what did it sell at. And by closest, we mean just like any other deal, you're going to try to find the closest comp that sold in as close of condition as possible recently on the market. And then we're going to generally get the seller somewhere between 70 to 80% of that as is value, sometimes a little lower depending on if there's actual rehab that's needed. Often it's not, right? Often there's some kind of block in the way. So they need money to move or something needs to be fixed, some reason why they can't just go list it on their own. And so we come in, we can bring additional capital to the deal, whether that means paying for the moving truck or paying for a storage unit or whatever that might be. We can make the deal happen. They've already signed the power of attorney over to us so that we have total control, and then we list it and sell it on the market, right, at that as is value. So it's a solution where they don't have to take such a steep discount on their property, because that's hard for people to take that discount unless they have a really immense pain point. But if they want to sell and they got 90 days, it's the perfect solution. And instead of saying, do they have 90 days? I should say, we're going to give them 90 days. That's Garen's exact verbiage. Is like, you know what, we're not like all the other wholesalers. We're going to give you, you know, a really low number and just try to rush you out of the property. You know, we're going to give you 90 days. We're going to get you a higher number. Here's how we're going to do it. And then actually explaining thoroughly what that process looks like, signing the PSA, signing the power of attorney. Then we're going to get somebody out there, professional photographer out there, to take pictures, like high quality pictures of the property, so we can turn around and list it. If we can flat list it, we'll flat list it. If we need to work with an agent, we'll work with an agent locally, depending on where the deal is at. So this, again, by listing on the market, we're not selling it to an investor. So they're not looking for as much of a discount. And when you sell it to an investor, they're the same thing. They're looking to buy, source a product they can make money on. But when we sell to an end buyer, they're looking for their home. They're looking where they can go paint the walls and add on a porch and like create their dream life. It's a totally different scenario, totally different type of buyer, right? So hopefully that explains a little bit more what exactly a novation is.
So are they not getting their money until you sell the property?
Spot
That's
on.
what they
We
sign
agree
up.
on a price
Okay.
up front. So let's say it's a $200,000 house. We agree, like a cash offer would be 70,000. We say, hey, I can get you 110,000. We're gonna bring, let's say, $10,000 to the deal to get it renovated, get whatever we got to do done to it, and then we're gonna sell it at 200. And then they're gonna get their 110, and then we're
I
gonna take the
gotcha.
difference after closing, paying out the agent, all the other fees, whatever's left over. We take
Okay. So you're giving them more than a cash offer
just
on
spread
the
out the time
property,
without
but
waiting
it's still
90 days.
enough for you to make a fair good amount of
Well, more than
profit.
just make a very good amount, brother. We make a much more on a novation than we do on a standard cash deal. Because think about that. You
Right.
get a very steep discount as a wholesaler to be able to make the numbers work for a fix and flipper. You have
Yeah.
to. Otherwise, this is why you hear 70% minus whatever. And that's why
Yeah.
we
Yeah.
tell you 60% minus rehab, because you have to get a very, very steep discount to make the numbers work.
And
So
so if they're getting offers that are super low from say 10, 12, 15, 20 people,
mhm.
and then you come in with an offer that's, I don't know, 30, $40,000 more.
Yeah, exactly.
I
So
see.
the way that might be framed is like, all right, Mr. Seller. So and maybe they told you this. They had, oh, I got all these other lowball offers. I'm not interested. Or if they didn't, either way, it could be, I know you're probably getting like hit over the head with some other really terribly low offers. I know how that game goes. Luckily for you, that's not what we're here to do. We actually have a unique solution that allows us to put more money in your pocket and actually give you 90 days to stay in the property while we do all of the work. You
I
see how
gotcha.
I'm framing that? I framed it entirely as a positive solution. I'm entirely giving you an answer. I'm not going to give you the low offer. I'm going to give you a higher number, and I'm giving them more time. I'm not asking, can you wait 90 days? I'm giving it to them. Now they're going to
And
receive
they're
this back. Go ahead.
gonna stay in while you're doing the fixing up and
Most of the
whatever
time.
needs to happen.
Most of the time, yep.
I gotcha.
The time they're going to be in the property until it's sold, just like if they were going to sell it on the market. It's just the difference is, think about your standard homeowner. They don't know shit about real estate. If we talk about the real estate
Right.
agent that knows shit about real estate, we know the standard homeowner doesn't know anything about real estate. So like they're not
Right.
going to be able to just go source, like maybe they could sign in an agent, but like generally there's a reason why they can't, whether that's money that
Yeah.
needs to be brought to the deal or some other factor on why they don't just list it. And so this is a solution that allows us to get more money, them to get more money, and everybody overall to win in this deal.
I gotcha.
Cool.
Thank you.
Yes, thank you for asking questions, stepping up. It's always good to be able to dig deeper. Let's see.
Bro, time, need, and amount. Garrett mentioned it like 5 times in a row in that last conversation. There's a time, there's a need, and there's an amount. That's exactly it. You'll find a pain point every single time. Great question, man. Great question.
For sure. Who else got something? We got another
Point.
time.
Great
And
point. I feel like we don't put enough. Like I feel like the four pillars are super important for the front end, and I don't ever hear like anything about it.
Mhm.
You know?
That's very true. We don't talk about that in that way. We don't use that terminology, but the thing that you all should be focused the most on is motivation. What is the motivation of this seller? Eric talks about the pain point a lot, right? Finding why they want to sell. It might not be an immense pain point. It might not be a divorce and they got to move fast, or it might not be that they inherited it and blah, 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 whatever it might. It might be that they're just tired of living where they're at, but they haven't got the offer that they're looking for to get out of their house yet. Plenty of people live like that. Plenty of people I know would literally sell their house on the fly and go to anywhere else in the world. But like it's got to make sense for me, right? So like you got to be able to gauge their motivation. So if you're talking to somebody and they don't have that level of motivation, or they don't have an intense level of motivation, but they're at least interested enough to keep talking to you, interested enough to hear you out, right? Then maybe you position this. So, all right, Mr. Seller, it doesn't seem like you're in a huge rush to get out of the property, which is actually great because we're going to give you 90 days anyway while we put in all the work to blah, 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 all the other stuff I just said, right? So there's lots of ways that you can position a novation as a solution to what their problem is, regardless of if it's a different problem, right? It's just how, think about this, like the tool that I have over here can solve many different problems, like a Swiss Army knife, right? Which representation of the tool, which tool I choose to use depends on who I'm talking to, right? If I'm looking at a hammer or if I'm looking at a nail, I probably need a hammer. If I'm looking at a screw, I probably don't need a hammer, right? So if I come at the screw with a hammer solution, it's not going to be a win-win for any of us. But you have to be able to hear that in them. Like, what is the motivation? Chelsea's right, right? You do need to cover these things. Motivation is the most important one, especially because timeline matters less for us. Most people lean in on timeline because they're trying to get that fast cash wholesale deal. It matters, obviously matters, because if they say 12 months from now, it's worthless, but like it matters less to us, not worthless, because we know we follow up on this side, but it's not worth as much right now if they're wanting to sell in 12 months. If they say, hey, I don't really have a set timeline, just whenever I get the right offer, I already know where I'm going next, or I already have another property I'll be moving to, then boom, now we already know that we don't need to talk about timeline anymore. Already check that box. Condition, equally as important as motivation, I would say, or at least your close second, right? Because on our side, we need to know what is the as-is value of this property. If I don't know the condition, if I can't see the property, if I have no pictures, videos, insight to what the property looks like, how can I find a comp to know what an as-is comparable would be? How can I set a value of what we think that we can sell this at if I can't find any pictures? I can't look at the property, right? So for innovation, the two most important ones are definitely going to be motivation and condition, right? The price, definitely important, but we know as negotiators, as deal makers, that's our pivot point. We want to get a price pulled out of them, but the way that we make a good deal is being able to change that variable, right? Getting the price number to drop based off the other things, right? So I really believe as we continue to move forward, we're going to pump out 1,000 plus novations specifically. And one of the things about the novation agreement that we have is that you can run a standard cash deal. So several of the deals that have been kind of stale that we didn't get a bunch of bites on as a cash deal in the dispo side, we're actually reeling back in to re-sign our new document so that we can novate it, right? Because we signed it on a discounted rate. Maybe I got to bring $15,000, $20,000 to it to renovate it and improve it a little bit, but then we can sell it on the market to an end buyer that's willing to pay much closer to a market price for a property that's not fully renovated, because they're not looking at the profit margin on it generally. They're looking at how the home makes them feel. So this is why I love the novation strategy, because it can solve other problems that wholesalers don't even know they have. They've got a deal sitting still, they can't find a solution. But if the seller can wait that period of time, one of the problems is a lot of times wholesalers promise that short timeline, and by the time they bring a lead back to us and ask, hey, can this work as a novation, they've already pushed the date back a couple times, right? And so now they're like, instead of giving the 90-day window as a solution, like, hey, I'm giving this to you. Now it's like Bane said in the chat earlier, like, you got to come back with your tail between your legs and say, hey, Mr. Seller, so I know I said, but like what had happened was, and I just couldn't, right? You got to backpedal. We don't want to do that, right? And so this is why this strategy is continuing to work more and more. I think we've signed probably Above 70% of what we've signed this month, this is just a number off the top of my head without actual running the math. I would say above 70% of what we've signed has been novations. So like it's going to continue to be the primary driver for us for sure.
And don't forget, we're the experts on this.
Exactly.
We do this day in and day out. If you own a house, the county thinks of your house tax wise as a mansion. Your insurance company looks at it as a single wide because they don't want to, enhance it or insure it. You think it's great because that's where you live and you love travertine tiles. So there's a lot of different ways that things go into that. So keep in mind that you're the expert. The seller is trying to sell a property. You're undercovering a need and a pain point. There is always a time. Like what I mean is if I talk to Garrett right now and say, Garrett, if I told you I could write you this check and everything is done and it's going to erase 10 years of your life, you're going to be 40 and everything worked out, what's that number look like? And if I put that together and says it happens in a year and I meet all of what he wants, the last 9 years are pointless because I just created that path to him and he doesn't know that path. He's working that path out. So there's always a time and we're all incentivized and motivated by that because you cannot print time.
You cannot print time, but we can print money when you learn how to build it right. Let's see. Andrew has a question here. Might be off topic. Got a question about the blitz. What you got for me, man? Oh, I got to give you a mic probably, huh? Yeah. What's up, Andrew?
There we go. So I actually had a deal come in last minute on the blitz before we cut off.
Yeah, okay.
This guy has two properties right next door to each other. He wasn't interested in selling, but if we came with the right number, he would be interested. He'd be open to seller finance. But he has a number in his head, which isn't too bad. So I
You
want
need
to
a
see.
closer?
Yeah, I need to figure out how to get this done. And like I said, they're both rented out right now. Like I said, I came in last minute just before we close out, so I wasn't able to throw it off to
I
anybody.
think,
But
you should tag Patrick Fitzgerald in the chat,
okay,
and he can help you for sure with a creative deal.
got that.
Cool.
Cool. Appreciate it.
Yes, sir. Manuel, you got your hand raised as well. What's up, man?
Yeah,
Hey,
hello?
can you hear me?
Yep, Manuel, what's up?
Hey, with the novation, I live in New York, and I know it's really not a good market
Yeah.
for investors in the sense that, a lot of investors don't want to own property here. But when it comes to novations, to find, homestead buyers, would that be a good market to work in? Or this?
Well, everybody, no matter where you live at, landlord friendly or not, everybody needs a home to live in. All right. And so
Right.
that's the benefit of working with a homestead buyers, all of those things that make New York a market that we avoid. It matters a lot less. What is one of the biggest determining factors for innovation, if it's going to work, is what is the population of the city? Ideally, we want it to be 20,000 or above and have a certain activity level on market so that we can know there's going to be a buyer to sell it to, right? Because I see sometimes in the chat people like, oh, I got this lead. It's in kind of a small market. And then nowadays, everybody knows what the questions are asked. So then 5 people are like, what's the population? And they're like 3,700. And we're all like, right? Because it just doesn't work, right? There's no market for it. We can't sell it. Then what are we signing it for? Now there's some occasional scenarios where that might be different. There might be, vacation towns where there's smaller populations or things like that. And then like there's circumstances where we might look at it deeper if the deal justifies it. But most often that's what you're going to be looking for. Is there a population of 20,000 or higher? Sometimes Garen will go down to 10,000. Again, if there's a high market activity level, sometimes we can go a little bit lower, but for your own safety net, if you're doing targeting, you're going to want to shoot for something generally above 20,000.
Right. I actually live in essentially New York City, or the area in New York City. I live off of New York City in Long Island. I'm not sure if you're familiar with Long Island at all. And obviously there are a lot of people with great jobs, but a lot of them do not qualify with today's interest rates and what have you. So I was just thinking in that route.
So one of the best things I think about what we're doing is that it's virtual, right? In the past, when I first learned real estate, I was 19 years old, but I was broke and I couldn't see yet how to use other people's money and I couldn't figure out marketing with $0. Um, and I was trapped to where I was at. I wasn't in the best market, and so like it was hard for me to get deals somewhere else. It wasn't a thing. Virtual wholesaling wasn't a thing in the same way at the time. Nowadays, you're not limited to just your backyard like you used to be. So my recommendation for those of you that are early on in your journey and or in markets like Manuel just referred to there, where it's just more difficult, find somewhere easier to start with, even if it's somewhere else in New York that's just less expensive. So it's going to be easier for people to find. Again, you don't have to just do it where you're at, especially because when you partner with us, we're going to handle all the novation process anyway. So it's not even like you have to go deal with an agent or do the flat listing or get the pictures or hold the open house. We got all of that covered for you. If you wanted to do it locally, in theory, you could do it yourself. You could do it virtually yourself if you wanted to. It's just a lot more work, like a lot more work. It makes more money, takes a lot more work. There's 3, 4 people that are basically full-time pushing it forward once it's submitted into our side. So, and that includes Garrett being the leader, or it doesn't include Garrett being the leader over top of that. So like there's a lot of moving parts in order to get that novation fully done properly. So if you wanted to do it yourself in a local market, you probably could, but I would recommend trying to find an area that's easier to hit. Like we do a lot of deals in small secondary markets, like places like Cleveland, Ohio, Columbus, Ohio, Kansas City, Missouri has been super hot, picking up a ton right now. St. Louis, Missouri has picked up a ton right now, right? Like everybody thinks like New York, Miami, Los Angeles, like they go big cities, right? But like find those mid-range cities where there's a huge county populace and many small towns within that where you can find home run deals in places out just outside of those larger areas. What's up, Eric?
Now, I was just going to share that the gentleman that's on the phone in New York, the reason why they're going after that is because of all the paper equity that's there. There are a lot of really good novations. What I would say for your outlying ones, go into the boroughs, but like if you're in like Queens or you're like in Long Island, hit up like Far Rock, hit up like Benson Hertz, hit up like Elmhurst, Jackson Heights, like specific enclaves within the boroughs. You're going to find a ton because there's a shit ton of volume in there, and they're 1 to 4 units. There's a lot of single families. And again, right now, paper wealth. There's a lot of people in there, 3.5%, 4%. You got a lot of equity in those markets. So I understand why he is there. I'll also share if you run into a situation where there's an affordability issue on a house, keep in mind there's places that offer asset depreciation that can add on to DSCRs based on what they have. They can factor certain amounts. So don't ever think that you can't get something financed, because there's a lot of stuff that we're working on with Garrett that is going to work with this group. I-10s, foreign nationals, like higher sellers, seconds. So just keep that stuff in mind. If you ever have an issue, flesh it out. Ask everything, because all we're trying to do is time, need, and amount for these borrowers.
There we go. And speaking of that, Eric, just so to give you a little heads up, Wednesday night at 6, Jay Holder's jumping on here with us. We're talking Morby method transactions, and we're going to talk about what we've got set up with your guy Rick to be able to do this. Most lenders don't want you to do a seller carry in second position. So like people are like, oh, we don't normally tell the lenders about the Morby method. I'm like, you thought I was going to do something without like talking about it 1,000 times over? And like, there's no way I wasn't going to tell Eric what's going on. And so like, the more we talk about it, the more we find some products that are exactly what we need. So we're working on several of those right now. So excited for that on Wednesday as well with Jay Holder. But all right, guys, I did see one other person that had their hand raised. Neil, did you have a question for you real quick? I know your hand went down pretty quick, but I know you tried to chat a few times.
Yeah, I'll just ask Charlie tomorrow morning. It was about my login conditions. It seems like it downgraded because I paid for the 147, and then all the leads that I downloaded from the into the CRM, it all disappeared.
Yeah, that's definitely a Charlie thing. If he can't
Yeah,
figure
yeah. I'm not trying to waste anybody's time. I'll just ask Charlie tomorrow morning.
No worries, brother. No worries. But we'll get it figured out for you. Well, guys, I have some family coming in town. They just got here. I heard the dogs barking, so we're getting ready to go get something to eat. So I wanted to start this a little earlier today. Going to end it a little early here at 6:30. We'll be back active again at 6 p.m. tomorrow. Hans will be live again. We'll have, I think, hopefully Bane will be back up to speed. He was a little bit under the weather, so make sure to send him some positive vibes as well. I think we've signed 5 contracts today. Still several going out from the blitz this past weekend. All, as we talked about earlier on, all of the previous sellers that we've talked to, guys, it's great that we jump in the chat and say, hey, guys, we got one, right? But if we don't get that signature, then we ain't got one. It doesn't matter, right? So if you've got that interest, chase them down, send them some cookies, send them some flowers. I don't care what you send them, just make contact. Let them know that we're still here. We're still trying to get this house purchased. The month is coming to an end. You can use the condensed timeline to your advantage. Look, I got to buy 5 more properties. I got to buy 3 more properties for the end of the month. I really want to get one in so that my boss, blah, blah, blah. Like, and man, sometimes I want to stop and I keep myself going, right? Because like, oh, we're having a competition and the month's almost over and I got to get one more deal in. So if you're still ready, like, I would love to get this done for you. How can I help? Right? There's all kinds of psychological plays that you can use to help push people over that edge, right? But all right, guys, I appreciate each. Oh, look, you got me right before. Quick question: is there a typical cap on renovations? Easy answer is going to generally be like on a standard novation, we spend like less than $2,000, right? Sometimes we can go up to as high as $30,000 and potentially higher, but the times that we would go higher than 30,000 are going to be few and far between. There would have to be like a massive spread to justify the carrying cost, right? Because if I go, it kind of defeats the purpose. If I have to go get 50 or 60K to renovate the property, I have to carry that money, right? And so that's going to cost me more money. So unless there's like a dramatic spread on the other side of that renovation, normally it's going to be on the smaller side, right? $10,000 top end, $15,000. Very few cases are we going to go much higher than that. But on that note, guys, I am gonna tie up tonight. I'll be back tomorrow. So any other questions you can drop in the chat. Let me know. There's plenty of other people around to help you out as well. Much love as always, guys. I'll see you tomorrow. Take care.
Thanks, Garrett.
Bye-bye.